Happy Sunday. I'm glad everybody's here. Shout out to Enders Tech in the building. Thanks for joining me. Trying to get motivated. We're going to do another, GRC compliance today. I'm a little behind. I was working on my AWS. I just didn't get it done. I've been doing a lot more professional work, and people ask me to do side work in GRC. So that's one reason I did it. Doing a little side work. My company asked me to help them. So sometimes when people are trying to get government business, I might help them a little bit. You know how we do it. If you have any questions, put them in the box. We're going to go over the videos I did this week. Let a few more people file in. Hope everybody had a good week. Let's see, checking myself over there. Look like we're rolling. Look like we got everything going. So let's just go over a few videos I did this week. You can go check my videos out. Like I said, I'm sure YouTube's pushing them out. But let's just go over those and let people file in super quick, and we'll get started. YouTube Google Ads, Windows support scam. So they were sending out Google. You click on it, where YouTube ads talking about, of course, buy support. When you click on it, it come up and say you have a virus or something's wrong with your computer, right? That's just so, I guess, normal for me and annoying, right? That's just normal business in the scam of the the internet. But I think that, especially for older people, that's still a super profitable scam, and a lot of people still fall for that. So, but still out there. So try to warn a few people. Excuse me. Get it going. Hackers steal 50,000 restaurant credit cards. What's up, Guillermo? Glad you can join me. So yeah, one of the other videos I did is because me and my son gets in an argument. I very rarely use my credit card in a restaurant. My goal is to use cash, or I do have a credit card I use just for restaurants and internet, but still I try not to use my credit card. What's up, John? What's up, Casual Economist? Glad you can join me. Just going over a couple videos before we get into that GRC and compliance. I've been doing a little side work, or somebody's asked me to do some. Well, I take that back. Somebody's doing some side work and they got stuck, so I decided they asked me to help them. So I liked them, so I gave them a few pointers on that GRC. And shout out to my man. We probably do digital nomad stuff you can do remotely. That's easy. That makes a decent bag. And really, GRC and they call it insurance and IT auditing. Most of that's paperwork. So, but once again, hackers steal 50,000 restaurant credit cards. If you go to the article, they have a map. There was quite a few in Indiana and Chicago. So I don't know if it's a Midwest thing or it was kind of spread out though. But yeah, so those were that was dangerous, right? Once you go to those restaurants, people got skimmers. They're doing all sorts of things. So you never know. You got to watch you. So you got to watch your credit cards and your waiter. A lot of times, too. A lot of times, too, though, you just got to be vigilant and watch people. This was interesting. Google and Oracle data centers. This was actually in the UK. I think it was 104, 106, and their data center just got too hot and they started shutting down racks. So we talked about that. Part of compliance is, where's your DR center? Where's your disaster recovery and COOP for your people, right? So if you got some in the United States, you should have some on the East and the West Coast, right? Then if you really, really need it, you need to be able to spend some up in another country, right? If you have that level of security and availability, right? Usually if you're spending up stuff in other countries, you need to get paid. So, but that's the first thing they talk about. And then we'll touch on that when we do this NIST 171 is a commercial business doing with government. They have a DR section in there. So we're just going to touch on that super quick while we're there. But I thought that was interesting because you would think the data centers, they would have a DR site or backup air conditioning. So they would be prepared for that scenario of heat, right? 100, we know it gets hot, but obviously they were not. So they started shutting down non-critical racks. This is something we probably talk about Tuesday is ACLU. The government's buying your cell data to track you, right? So we know there's mass surveillance, keeping track of the population, right? Security, national security, police, local, federal, right? And it's which is unbelievable. People do criminal crimes with their cell phone in their back pocket and on, right? So, and please believe if you cut your phone off, those cell towers are still pinging your phone, even if you're cutting it off, right? So, the government's keeping track of your location data. You ever go to Applebee's at the table reader? I kept thinking the broadcast was on a secure net. That is a no. That is a no. I have been to Applebee's. I would, yeah. When they bring it up, I feel a little better, but I'm thinking two is if you have a Raspberry Pi, if I put a Raspberry Pi right where right where that credit card is, I think I could read your credit card on a NFC, near field communication. I could pick your credit card reader off of that, right? And read the same thing that readers read, right? So, and two is a lot of times people were putting fake readers on top of those readers, right? Are the restaurants really keeping track of them? Are the waiters together? They putting fake skimmers on that reader. So while you skimming, they're skimming your credit card with those things at Applebee's. But Gilmore, you got to be careful with me, man. I'm an old curmudgeon, man. When I see stuff, the first thing on me, cybersecurity, how would I attack this device? So I'm a little paranoid in my old age, but once again, ACLU, the government was buying your cell phone data, and they were buying billions of records, right? With minute endpoints, meaning they could track you throughout the day. Because if your phone on as you're driving, it's pinging off cell phone towers, it's pinging off local Wi-Fi's that are open up to the public, right? So, two is when there's a crime in the area, the FBI or local law enforcement, they ask for location data for like a mile. So if you around that area and somebody commits a crime, your location's data is going with them, right? You just happen to be walking by somebody and something happened. If your phone is on your location data, now you're in investigation you're not even aware of. So that's why that location data sometimes is could be a little pesky on it though, right? So the crazy thing though is I do more blue team and security is usually red team, blue team, and purple team. I usually do more defense, which is blue team. So that's where compliance come in. We talking about security techs, securing IT infrastructure, even in being in the cloud. I'm in my AWS phase, so I'm trying to get my cloud skills up. So even if it's in the cloud, even if it's in the government cloud, you still have to do the checks to make sure you're securing that cloud. The big deal about the cloud, and they even tell you this, AWS, Azure, and Google, is they give you the pieces to secure it, right? You still have to configure them, right? Is your database encrypted? Is your load balancer encryption? Is your EC2, if you're saving data at the local instance level, is that disk drive encrypted, right? Even though it's on the local rack of the EC2, it could be encrypted or not encrypted, right? So you have to figure that out as an agency. So let's get into it real quick. Federal GRC NIST 800-171 is basically commercial business security checks, so you can do government work, right? So that's what it is, and we're just going to go through it. And this is going to be a really hot sector. What not going to be? It is a super hot sector because if you Google CMC, and I might do that in there, CMC is the next phase of security the DoD and the government wants small and large companies to go to. You have to physically go through a certification by, they call them 3PO, a third-party assessor. So you got to pay for people to come in, look at your security, look at your physical security of your organization if you're moving products or taking certain stuff from a warehouse information. So since everybody has to be secure, right? I think it's in 2 years, everybody's starting to ramp up to get that knowledge to be able to do that type of security, right? So that's what we're going to touch on. GRC hidden gem. So if we start, let's NIST 800 171. If you look up, these are the security families. Like I said, I'm just going to touch on it in depth. I'm not going to get crazy with it, but it's a good understanding because even if you're working for somebody and they have some security compliance, if you're in IT, even if you're a network guy, database guy, whatever you have in IT, you're still going to need to talk to security. And if that business is doing some business with a state, local, or even federal government, you got to have some security to that, right? So those are the security families, like access control. AU is auditing. IRS incident response. PS, I think, is physical security. So those are it. And at the bottom, it tells you what type of security controls they are with the color, right? So when small companies have to start doing that, right, they start putting these controls on their system. And a lot of it too is paperwork. They want you to have a security program. So you growing and you can check vulnerabilities. If something like Casillas or something happens, you as an organization understands what that means and you can respond to them. Right. So, and two is as a young person in cybersecurity or even a new person in cybersecurity, compliance is good because a lot of times you interviewing people and you just getting the paperwork together to give it to the director of compliance or the compliance team, right? A lot of times I just work with the technical teams and pass that information over to the compliance team. So once again, if you have any other security questions in the realm or any of the videos, just drop them in the chat and we can go over them. Like again, I'm actually security IT auditor. Some people call it insurance. I call it auditing. I specialize in FISMA, which is DOD, and a little HIPAA, and a lot of IRS, right? That's based on actually NIST 800-53. And it's about 5,000 checks on a small system, right? So that's how the kids say, that's how I get my bag. And that's when I do my course in the future. Shout out to Keep It Techy and Kev Tech. That's probably what I do my course on, probably a little higher level. Simply Cyber guy's got a nice channel. He's got a nice introductory low cost. So I'll probably do some an intermediate course on top of him and more in the cloud, right? So because everybody's going to the cloud. So when I do my course, shout out to Kev Tech and all those guys, what they doing courses. When I hopefully next summer when I do my course, that's what I do though. So these are the 14 families that's on the NIST 800 171 that we were looking at the top. Access control, awareness training, audit and accountability, configuration management, identification and authentication, incident response, and maintenance. Right. So part of when we're looking at Oracle and Google, they should have an incident response plan for if their data center overheated, right? They should have had one close that they can roll over to or be able to shut down some critical systems for a fix for that. But as you get in the incident response, you need to practice certain things for when they happen, you have an answer to it. Media protection, personal security, physical protection, risk assessment, and security assessment. So realistically, my job probably over the last 10 years have been those two: risk assessment and security assessment. That's what we're going to talk to when you do checks and security. What can you put on? What can you take off? Basically, you're doing a risk assessment. What risk are you willing to take? And a security assessment too. If I can't do this and I can't do that, what is the security assessment of it, and how much risk can my business take if I don't do that, right? Could we get fined if we got hacked? Right. So system and communication protection and system information and integrity. Right. So those are the security families for 171. You usually do policies and procedures for that. So when you do paperwork for that, and we'll talk about that, it's called an ATO, getting authority to operate, which is all the paperwork you need to turn in to somebody like me to do an assessment on your organization. It's probably going to be about 2,000 pages, right? So that's why you need a lot of people helping you and great writers and policy people, right? But that's a excellent way to get into the game and make money in a non-technical way. So in this, once again, 800-171, they have basic security, derived security, and tailored security. So basic security requirements that are changed from FIPS 200, which provides high level and fundamental security requirements for federal systems and information. That's just basic security, basic hygiene, right? We got encryption, you got to have some passwords, right? So FIPS 200 is what level of security does your organization need, right? If you're HIPAA, IRS, most of it's moderate. If you're dealing with nuclear bombs, right, that's high level, right? High level means it's life or death, right? So even a lot of times in HIPAA, if we don't get your social security number right or this or that right, you won't die, right? So, but there's a few things. Is somebody died recently when a ransomware hacked the hospital and they had to reroute somebody to another hospital. They didn't make it right. So that's why you need to get your security together. Derived security is a higher level security. Derived security, which supplements the basic security requirements, are taken from security controls from uh, security special security publication 853, starting with the security requirements and security controls, like we talked about, from a moderate baseline, right? So I guess I'm sold. I just think we need to do this 853 across the board, but those are a lot of checks for a small company. I do understand that, and time and people, right? Super expensive. So I can see why they want to kind of pare it down with the 171. Tailored, eliminate requirements, controls, or part of controls that are uniquely federal, primarily responsibility of federal government, not directly related to protection of confidential information. They call it CUI, or expected to be routinely satisfied by non-federal organization without specification. Left my hand out. So basically, what that means is when you go through a large, especially a large assessment, some of the security checks won't apply to every business, right? That means you have to tailor it, right? If you talk about NoSQL and you have NoSQL database, right? Those checks won't apply to you, right? Or you can't do a certain level of encryption, but you can do something else, right? That's called tailoring, right? It's called a tool of compensating control. A lot of times, depending on the level, is if you can't do this, you can do that, right? You have to write it up. And we'll talk about the ATO. You got to give it to the guy assessment, and they have to sign off on it since it's not the exact control they signed off on. But to be honest, that's actually quite common. All right. Once again, the basic security requirements 3.8 protect, limit access to your system. 383 sanitize or destroy media. The derived level is mark the media, control access to the container with the secret information, implement cryptography, that is encryption, SSL, HTTPS, right? Control use of mutable drives, USB drives. A lot of times we block them from our staff using them internally, just depending on what your organization can do with it. Prohibit the use of portable storage. Protect the confidentiality of backups at storage location. A lot of your backups are online now, so you don't actually keep them in fire rated boxes like we used to do in the 90s. So most of your backup is online. I'm actually kind of old, so I actually still try to get my DBAs to export that on a 10 terabyte USB drive and tank it somewhere, a bank, another organization, make sure it's encrypted and lock it up, because there's been a couple hacks where the hacker actually got in their system, actually got to their backups. It was a crypto shop, and he actually dropped their current system and their backup, and that small company had to go out of business, right? Because they lost everybody's data. So I'm still old school. I still like to have at least once a quarter to go somewhere, right? So little drastic, but I'm drastic. Shout out to Blind Guy and his wife. Glad they could join me. Go check them out. They always having a great guests, everything from finance to health. I always love their health stuff. PBO got getting a little better shape. Trying to, like she said, I gotta put little vegetables without my steak, break that up a little bit. Shout out to that. So NIST 800, once again, we're talking about getting that federal work, what you need to do to get federal work. And this is actually the security control, what it would look like when you would look it up in NIST. So it's just a basic control 3.13, limit access to authorized users, process acting on behalf of authorized users and devices, including other systems. So it kind of gives you discussion. Access control policies, identity role-based, control access between active entities or subjects, users or process acting on behalf and passive entities, device files and system access information mechanism. Basically, this is a password, right? Or MFA, right? So it words it like that. So that's when the security checks as an assessor. I have to see if they have it on and how we're doing it and how are we controlling it. So this one is a derived one. Control the flow of the CUI in accordance with the approved authorization. Information control flow where information can travel within the system and between systems who can access it without explicit regard to subsequent access to the information. I'm not going to read over that, but I can if you want to get in there. Shout out to Big Discussion. Let me make sure he has a wrench. I was on his channel. Y'all need to go check him out. Let me see if I gave him a wrench. Let's see the doc. Give the doc a wrench. As is the moderator. So definitely go check him out. We were talking about Carl Sagan in space, and he did an excellent telescope. Hubble had a guy that was administrator, black guy administrator. So I definitely go ahead. And I love sending people because as a young man, I love Star Trek, and actually that's how I got into IT. Doc, if you got a minute or you want to, just drop your channel in there. I gave you a wrench. So definitely go check out him. I love the PhDs in here. One of my things I regret in life, I got a master's. I should have went on ahead and did that next step in life. At 54, I think it's a little too late for me. So I'm gonna let the doc drive that. So he's definitely on it. And I love going over to his channel and checking him out. And if anybody's in here is young, I don't even know. If you want to get a PhD, go ahead and take that step. I'll let the doc chime on. I think it's a little easier because now you can do projects and other stuff to get PhDs. You don't have to all just be writing this huge dissertation like it used to be in the 90s and the early 2000s when I should have went. So it's a little different now. With I've seen guys get PhDs with open source projects for technology and special encryption. And shout out to Engineering Cannabis. He's not here, but a lot of ML and AI technologies that dudes are doing open source. They're actually submitting a lot of those for PhDs now. So go check his channel out, man. He's definitely doing a good work. Once again, so we talking about derived security. So this is just extra security. So the cool thing is when you're doing as long as I had, the information flow control, that's the network guys. Shout out to my CNAs, my Cisco, and my Juniper guys. When you talking about network and security, that's what that check's saying, right? When you talk about information flow, you can see it down there talking about web proxies, right? We talking about firewalls, load balancers. Once again, I'm an AWS public subnet versus a private subnet. So when guys talk about networking, and a lot of guys get in IT with networking, shout out to them. Security plays a part in that also, right? You got to secure the network. You got to go control your network. You got to figure out who's logging in with your sessions on your network, right? So every part of IT security is on top, right? A lot of people, once again, start out with networking. Cisco's the 800-pound gorilla. Get your CNAs, CCIEs, and all those good certs. You need to understand security, right, to get to the next level and get to that next bag. Shout out to Kev Tech. He probably didn't hear me mention his name, but I'm gonna throw him out though. When I do my course like Kev Tech, when I grow up, I probably do GRC, right? Simply Cyber. He does one. I probably do an advanced one with the cloud and do compliance, securing AWS to do federal work when I do my course. Go check out Kev Tech. He's got a great channel and a couple great courses. So definitely recommend him. And he always sends people to talk to me about cybersecurity. And I always tell him, if Kev Tech send you, you're gonna get bumped to the front of the line, because I know he's putting in great work. And I always give me a shout out on LinkedIn. I got to work on my LinkedIn. I'm old, but shout out to him. But once again, Derived, this is the network security piece. That's really one of the foundations of security. If if anybody get on your network and your password weak, we're toast, right? So that's what I tell people. When you get into networking, the next level is get your security on top of that, then you actually going to get paid, right? If you're a CNA, Cisco, Juniper, and you can do federal compliance and the checks to say we're super secure as an organization, you're going to kill it, right? Let me see, my man Jay M's got down there. I think Salesforce is a good certification. I actually had a second interview with them, and they put a lot of their security hiring on freeze. I think they hired 2,000 security people in the last 2 years. Now, Salesforce is cool. A lot of people don't realize is Salesforce runs on a lot of Oracle hardware, especially Oracle's database appliance. If you look at, I can't even think of his name. His CO, he used to actually work for Larry Ellison, so they're tight. So now Salesforce is a great cert to have. Once again, I just left the government agency, Department of Revenue of Indiana. I was consulting out there for 9 years. We were actually looking at Salesforce. Everybody's trying to figure out how to cut down on their programming cost, and they're programming with their widgets and a lot of their pre-built I'm calling them widgets and packages, stitching those together, JM. That's definitely a great cloud vendor. I will put them right under the big three. Actually, I might put them up front of Google, to be honest, JM. Their clients, people are really adapting to that product. That product you can actually run inside AWS. You can run them together, right? So that's definitely a good cert to have, JM. It's like I said, Salesforce is definitely one of the top. And I think I Googled those. All those once you get past the newbie cert, all those guys make six figures once you get a couple years under your belt with Salesforce. Because like I said, a lot of they got a lot of clients, and people are trying to cut down their programming costs. So they give you a lot of that. Use this widget, it's already done. Click on this button, spin up this form, and boom, you could be running. Okay. That's cool. You moving in. So those are the ones just to get in. Now, you just gotta work on your skill set and get some experience in. And I know Kev Tech's good about that in his course, doing labs, right? So I think for me, shout out to Kev Tech, Keep It Tech, he's got his Linuxes. We need to come together and as a consortium and come up with real world labs that touches everybody, specially. So somebody like JM or something can kind of get a little more real world access to real world problems and just kind of do it as an incubator, right? Kev Tech's doing a lab, but I think we should have projects that we're working on as a group, right? That we could say, come and help us. And even if that project doesn't go where it should go, we have from the programming standpoint, you checking in and you checking it out. We got automated builds, so we could do DevSecOps, right? We building stuff, so when stuff doesn't work, Kev Tech, we know he's help desk, getting those stuff set up where people getting real world tickets by people working on stuff, right? Linux, I'm a Linux guy, I'm old school. We running Linux in AWS where people getting those Linux skills, and the next step of Linux is spinning up multiple EC2s, having a automated supply group, right? Spinning up different databases, right? So all those work together. So you have real world experience, even if you don't succeed in this project, whatever that is we were talking in the docs channel. We trying to get the satellite data. We could be trying to get the satellite data, spinning up in AWS, building it across, getting the programmers, getting the database, getting the sysop guys. Shout out to JB. But there's real world jobs and tasks in there when we set up an incubator to try to build something. Right. Help desk in the house. We always need help desk. I'm always struggling. So sometimes my machine don't work right, or in AWS, right? I don't have something configured, right? So help desk is really at every level, right? Because usually you have level 1, 2, and 3. I said this one time. I was a junior programmer on an Oracle database. The help desk would send me tickets because I would do the help desk for the database people, right? So we just didn't call it help desk, but I would take those tickets. Did the database get the right users? Did he run the right thing? Or we call it SQLnet. Is this username and privileges set up to use that? So even the DBAs and the programmers got to take tickets, right, at a certain level. Maybe you can bring Network Bro to do. Oh yeah. He's definitely number one on that. I reached out to him because he actually has hardware at his home. So I actually want to do hardware into my AWS JM and set up a VPN between my AWS and his house, right? Because that's really what you do in a company. The first thing you do is a lot of time fair. They want you to have a VPN between AWS and on-prem. So he definitely number one. Shout out to Network Bro. I usually on there. You see me on there. I usually give him the STIG of the day and the security check. So now he's definitely on there. I think he's studying for a test. I haven't seen him in a month, Jam. I was gonna reach out to him. I'm in his Discord a little bit, so I haven't seen him, so I'm a little worried about him because he usually lab every day. Shout out Dewan Lightfoot. So he would definitely be number one. We probably would get Dewan, but Dewan's so busy, JM. So now I was definitely thinking of Network Bro because you seen him. He has hardware at his house, and very few people lab on hardware, right? They usually use those software packages, man. But now I actually want to do a VPN between his home and my AWS, so we can actually make it look like one network, right? So you click on some in AWS, look at a hard drive on-prem, right, and it looks like one network. So now he's definitely in my plans, right? So let's check this one out. So tailoring, we talked about that. So in the checks from NIST 800-171, tailoring means the agency could pick additional security that goes into their checks. Like I told you, I was helping this young guy get out there, and so they're tailoring. They want to do NFO and CU, right? So NCO is not directly related to confidential. Fed is uniquely Fed and primary responsibility. NFO is expected to be routinely satisfied by non-federal operations without specification. CUI basic or derived from security requirements specified and traceable to the security controls, enhancement, or specific. So this is extra security your agency could ask you to do, right? So the young guy I was helping, he was doing NFO, and I think NFO the last two, right? So we were talking, what does that look like in AWS from a hardening perspective, right? And what do you need to lock down to make that agency happen and get an ATO, which is an authority to operate, meaning you can sell your software to the government and get paid for it, right? So that's really what it's all about. So part of that, remember, to derive, they talked about the 853 controls, and that's how it would look like. This is training. So if you were doing NFO, you would do AT1. If you were doing CUI, you would do the middle three. And NFO, you do 1 and 3. So basically, he needs to do all 5 of these: training, policies and procedures, awareness training, security, incident threats, right? So usually we get a penetration tester to come in and actually check that out. For him, what I told him to do is get Nmap, and there's some open source tools, and just do it itself, right? For your first one. Cool thing with AWS, they have AWS Detective. It does third-party assessment of your AWS. So I told him run that. It was pretty cheap. His small role-based too. And when you take your training, you got to just record it, right? So I usually tell people SAN has $5 training. That's pretty good. Talks about the basic hygiene of computer security, what you should do. Long passwords, MFA, don't share your password type stuff, right? So I usually tell people go out to SANS, let's check the box, record it. 2 role-based security training is each company or client has divisions. Accounting security training is going to be different than IT security training, right? IT is going to be different than the warehouse training, right? So each division should have training specifically for them. Right? So that's all. So that's where that derived and extensive training comes through. So we just looked at it. That's what it looks like in there. So 321 and 322. Once again, it was awareness training. We were looking at it maps to AT security training and road training, right? So when he does his policy for training, it include those 5 things we just looked at in the policy, right? Because the policy says we as an organization says we're going to do this, right? We're enforcing it. Then the CIO, CISO, or the president has to sign it with a date on it, right? The government wants to make sure it's coming from top down and they're serious about it, right? So, but that's funny, JM. You mentioned network, bruh. But yeah, he's number one on who I was gonna pick to do the network part of that. Like I said, we're pretty tight. So, what's up, casual? Okay, I saw that. Let me look at a few of these. Make sure I get them all. I talked about that. Shout out to that. I'm not a huge cert guy, casual economist. The only thing that kind of makes me a cert guy now, HR now has become overly aggressive with certs, right? So when you apply for a job, unless you know them, the first thing they do is scan it for certs. Because I used to work for a large pharmaceutical company. When they apply for a job, and it was shout out to Black Heights, the guy on Google says when they post a job, they get 1,000 respondents, casual economists. So the only way you can start chopping that down is to start, you got a degree or you got certs. So they starting off with certs because they're not going to look through 1,000 resume, casual economists. So unless you got somebody to call to get you in line to bump you in that queue, they're looking for certs, right? So that's why I had Security Plus for 20 years. 20 years. That's the only one I had there when I thought when stuff started happening and I had to go look for something. I wasn't getting a lot of hits at first because I didn't have certs. So the hits I were getting because I knew somebody at the company, but when I send something to like a company blind, I got very few hits, casual economists. So that's the only reason why I started hitting that search pretty hard. Once I got my AWS search, man, my resume started blowing up. So that's my only, I guess, retort. I'm like you. I met a lot of guys with certs. I don't think very good. So I'm not a cert heavy guy. Even if you got certs, you got to show me you can roll up your sleeves and get dirty in the AWS console. You got to roll up your sleeves and get your cloud formation on, right? And start doing stuff with automation. For me, but the HR, that's the easiest thing for them casual economists. What certs do they have? Let's get them in the queue. I got 5 test servers on AWS Gilmore. I'm always spinning up and down. Shout out to, like he said, my young man network, bro. Shout out to the king, the one life, but I lab every day, Gilmore. So I spin up about 3 or 4 sorts. So this morning I spent up 3 web servers on a public and private subnet. I spun up a S3 bucket. I put some Java code inside a Lambda function and set up a CloudWatch to automatically call the Lambda function on an automatic timer and send something into cloud formation, right? So I try to lab every day, Gilmore, because when you get the job with your search, you better be able to do it. So now I try to lab every day. 2 is the cool thing about it is they got a free tier in AWS. So actually mine ran out. So I probably pay about $20 a month and I spend something up every day. And I just make sure I kill it so I'm not charged overnight for it. And I work on different things, Gilmore. So now I'm labbing every day. So after we get out, I'm old. I probably take a nap and I got a 3-tier availability zone in 3 different states. And on the East Coast and West Coast, I'm a fell over on a DNS. So I lab every day, Gilmore. So now I've definitely got a ton of Those servers spun up. Yep, but I have every day. If I'm not studying for, yeah, even part of my studying is labbing every day with the cert. So once again, I've been studying for my SysOp AWS cert. I'm hoping to take that in a month. I have the practitioner, associate architect, associate developer, and the security specialty. So I'm hoping to get the SysOp. Then after that, the following month, I'm hoping to go for the professional associate. Uh, architect professional. That's really what I want to get in Gilmore. So I think I'm ready. I've been taking a few practice tests at the professional level. I've been doing okay. So hopefully in a couple months I'll be sitting for the professional test. Right. So let's get it. Once again, let's get back on it. So this one, we just looked at this. This is the paperwork we talked about. So that shows you the NIST 871. We were actually talking about the CUI and NFO controls. So at the top, we're going to have procedures, guidelines, standards, objectives, and policies. In there is SOP, with standard operating procedures, right? Because we run a program, so we got to have all that stuff documented, showing the assessor or the federal agency you can feel good giving us the secret stuff, SSN, nuclear codes, right? We can handle it. We're a program and we're about the security life. But those poems basically is plan of action and milestones, tech way to say just a project plan. When are we going to do these controls? When are we going to do encryption? When are we going to do BitLocker, right? Encrypt everybody's hard drives in case somebody steals their laptop, right? So it's just schedule to do that. So AWS, we were talking about is shared responsibility. AWS has security of the cloud, the customer responsibility. You have security in the cloud, right? AWS is responsible for protecting the infrastructure that runs on all the services offered by AWS Cloud. The infrastructure is composed of hardware, software, networking facilities, and the run of AWS Cloud. Customer responsibilities and responsibility will be determined by the AWS Cloud service that customer selects. This determines the amount of configuration work the customer must perform as part of their security. Right? So when what's that bank? I got to think of it. They always say we're in your wallet. They actually got hacked. They were in AWS. The AWS got called in front of Congress, and they just told them it worked as designed because they set it up wrong. They had an S3 bucket, was a file system hooked straight to the internet with no encryption and the password super work. Somebody got it and stole all the information. AWS was not our bad, their fault, not us, right? So I get a lot of clients, customers, and agencies as a consultant. They go, "Oh, that's AWS's problem." I go, "No, AWS works for you. You're responsible for them, right?" We were talking about risk assessment and IT risk, right? That's part of AWS that you're responsible for. You have to do a risk assessment, a security assessment of them and how you're putting it together, right? So a lot of people miss that out, right? So the artifacts we just got through looking at. So when we do an assessment, trying to get ready for to do government work, we got our policies, procedure, poems, just the schedule. SSP, I should have wrote this out. Security system plan, right? How are you locking it all down? Because when I come and do an assessment, I ask for the SSP, and it should go through everything at a high level on how you have it set up. Right? Should be a diagram in and how you do encryption in database, how you doing on EC2, how you doing at the network, and the same thing for on-prem. Right? What are you losing? How? Shout out to the network guys. How are you controlling your network? How are you separating subnets? How are you locking that down? Right? All that's going to be in the system security plan. Standard operating procedures. When somebody requests a password, how do you give it to them? If I'm a privileged user and I'm a DBA, how do I get my password? How do I control my password? Are you using elevated privileges? Right. When I was a DBA, I did my regular work as my regular password. But when I did DBA work, right, I logged on to a different password and escalated my privilege. Why? Because if somebody steal my password, hopefully I'm not using my elevated and they get my regular, right? So it makes it harder for them to steal a privileged password, right? So that should be in your standard operating procedure. Then the guidelines is, okay, you doing how you setting them up? Are you making them do MFA? They doing Duo? They doing I mean, there's so many out there. Cisco, everybody's got a product, right? So the guidelines is which one you. Then the standards is what's the standard way to set it up, and hopefully you have that automated, right? When I was at DoD, you hit a button, it was create a regular password, send them their password, right? Already ready to expire. They log in. It asks them to prompt their password. They put in their new password. So now the person that generated doesn't know it, right? Then so that's it. Just the paperwork you need to get ready for that. Just what we were talking about in AWS customer responsibility. AWS, they just kind of lay them out. That's one of the basic things from security you see for AWS. Part of your NIST 171, if you're developing software, what's the pipeline for you to get it out there, right? And how is it secured, right? So the standard stuff out here is GitHub, Jenkins, and Ansible. AWS has their version. So how are you building software? How are you getting out there? For 171, how are you securing it? Because if you remember Kaseya's, right, the Russians got in there, stopped us from getting gas for a minute, right? And the I think it's West Coast was shut down. Somebody was trying to put gas in the trash bag, right? So we got to make sure our software is locked down, right? And we can make that work. So it just shows you, and that's what we're talking about. The diagram. This is what the diagram would look like if you were developing software at a high level. And from a system security plan, this is what I would expect to see in your package. Right? Elastic Beanstalk is just one way to deliver that software to a production environment. So once again, from a security perspective, in 171, AWS controls everything in the green at the bottom. You just control your code, right? So from 171, AWS violates lockdown. So you still got to do your security checks for your code, right? So that's what that picture is just showing. Once again, developing code, how you do it, and dropping it in there. This right here is the whole architecture of a secure company, like I said, doing government. Route 53, just your DNS. Locks mean it's all encryption. Going to your internet gateway, your application load balancer. Once again, all that stuff's encrypted. Your EC2s, spin it up, spin it down, Linux or Unix boxes. Once again, that's encrypted. Even the disk on those EC2 are encryption. Auto scaling group. That's your databases talking to each other, right? See those boxes going straight down there? That's a data center, and that's a different data center. So unlike Oracle, if this one got hot, usually they're like at least 100 miles away. So maybe you can fail over to that and run all your organizations in that particular data center that's 100 miles away, right? So that's part of the disaster recovery. So on 171, right, we talked about what's your architecture. At the top was management. Now we're getting a little bit into technology and what we're looking for from assessment. Right? And one of our future courses would be we'd actually go in and do a scan of the network, and we'll talk about getting vulnerabilities, getting the EC2 and make sure it's hardening. The network guy, right? Making sure, like I said, public is in the green. Nobody from the internet could actually get to our private network, right? Without our permission, they would have to jump on. They call them a jump box to get to them, right? So we would have all that set up. So let's see, casual economists. How that makes sense. I got to hit up PH or Tam for one-on-one. I need that tag back. Yeah, shout out to them, man. I thought I was making some money till I talked to them. Tam be on that. Shout out to her, that $400,000 bag. I'm like, ooh, I'm old and broke, casual economist. But yeah, so that's why the certs are playing, and so we got. I'm a little on the fence on that. I think you and shout out to AWS. When you go for the sysops, they give you 3 labs, so you got to actually go in there and configure the stuff they ask you as a project in your. I think they give you 20 minutes on each. So now a lot of certs are actually asking you to lab up. This is the problem. You got to actually configure it up and make it happen. So. See what my man Collins said. I have to present a diagram such as this in my internship. Reach out to me. I don't want if I'm and two is right now I'm free. So if you needed to talk to me about that, you can go to my channel or professorblackops@gmail.com. I haven't looked at my emails in 3 days. I got to do a better job. I usually say give me 48 hours. But yeah, if you need to do that internship, for people that know, most people know, I have 30 plus years in IT. I've been doing cybersecurity for 10 plus years. I worked at the Department of Defense for 11. I've done everything from, I started off as a programmer. I have a bachelor's in computer science. I've done everything from senior programmer, analyst, DBA, web admin, application admin. Then me doing that in DOD, they got serious about security. So we start doing what they call them compliance checks and STIGs, which is just hardening switches you cut on each one of those devices. So for the last 10 years, and I miss building stuff, I usually do compliance, making sure people are secure with how they're building stuff, right? So Colin, let me know if you want to reach out, or if you want to send me something and have me look at it, or if you have a question. I'm sure you got a professor. Oh, the other thing, I taught for 10 years at a local community college. A student tried to tell me what to do, and the university was backing the student. I tell people, students don't tell me what to do, homie. I just do this for lunch money. So like I said, I taught for 10 years. So hopefully, I've been on YouTube for about a year. So hopefully next summer, I'm actually going to have courses and classes I'm going to teach online with assignments and everything to kind of get you ready, right? Or two is, so I think that's what I'm going to do in the near future. So I'm just putting different stuff on my channel. I actually have a playlist for Security Plus, AWS Practitioner. I got a playlist for there if you want to get your foot wet. But yeah, Colin, these are what you would do. And I'm glad you're doing that in your internship, because these are diagrams that you would turn into an assessor or work on with your networking team to figure out what's going on actually in the company, right? Once again, I look at these all the time because I do a lot of vendors. They call them RFI and RFPs, requests for proposals. When they want to do work for the state agency I work on, I have to review those diagrams for security. So I'm currently studying CYSA, Linux Plus. Both those are great things, man. CYSA, like I said, that's policies, procedures. I think that's on the management side. Linux Plus, I love Linux. I've been doing Linux off and on. I'm not good as Tam. I'm probably an intermediate because I usually use Linux from a programming standpoint, right? So when I set up something, I'm going to give it a user for Tomcat. I might take no password, harden the password, set up, of course, securities, right? User group and everyone. So I'm probably intermediate at that level, even though I've been doing it off and on. I've never been a Linux essay. Now, I do a lot of Linux essay-ish work, right? I create users and passwords for people. I always doing permissions, helping the development team get their permissions up, because sometimes that's hard when you got a program running on top of that for a web server or a database, right? So most of that stuff runs on top of Linux, right? I tapped in already your videos, have helped me all this. That's cool. Like I said, I appreciate the support. Like I said, if you need to get on, I got this software. We can make it a private call if you want to go over a diagram or just get some input or something. Or if you ever need anything to me, man, just reach out. That's one reason I came to YouTube, man, to help people out. That's my new calling as an old guy. So shout out to Black Heights, Kev Tech's in the building, Tech G. There's so many textual chatter. When those guys, I tell them to send people to me, right, to have a chat on different things. I was chatting with a young lady. She was like, "Oh, I don't want to do help desk for security." I'm like, "You could do help desk for 6 months and transfer to another department. Help desk just gets you in to build another company." And I tell people, help desk is a great way to learn, man. I always give a shout out to the help desk. And I always tell my help desk to reach out. And two is, as security people, I'm always tight with my help desk. Why? If somebody's doing something weird with security, they'll drop me a little IM and be like, "PBO, I think you need to go see X. What they trying to do look funny." So I need help desk to drop a dime on people because to help me keep track of people, right? Because sometimes people might ask for software that they shouldn't have, and somehow they got it or they got around the system. A lot of times they reach out to help desk to get the software. Then help desk hits me up and I'll be like, "Oh, security hasn't reviewed that," right? So help desk is always a good place to start and shout out to help desk. Right? So once again, just a basic diagram. This is a 3-tier basic setup for the cloud or even on-prem. I was doing this in 2000s at DoD. Web tier, app tier, database tier, 3-tier. We've been doing 3 tiers forever, right? We just moved up to a cloud and we can automate a little more stuff. But I've been doing 3 tiers for 22 years. So shout out to the 3 tiers. So now that's pretty it. AWS config records and evaluate that. Basically, it'll actually run an assessment of your environment, right? You can pick the compliance you want it to run. So that's the cool thing about AWS. They give you services and stuff. So service that enables you to access, audit, and evaluate configurations of your AWS resource. Config and continuously monitors and records your AWS configurations and allows you to automate evaluation. So a lot of times, let's say an S3 bucket is a file system. If somebody takes encryption out, I can have AWS config be like, oh, no. It'll automatically run a job and put the encryption back on there. A developer might be doing something and need to take it off in production because it's breaking his app, which is fine. He needs to let security know for we can get an exception. Then we can take it off, but we got to know you're taking it off so we know the risk of you doing that, right? So AWS config can automate that and actually force it to be on, right? So once again, continuous auditing, access overall compliance. Configs provides you with the ability to find rules for provisioning and configuring AWS resource. These rules can be provisioned independently or packaged together with compliance remediation action inside of a pack known as a conformance packs. This can be deployed across your entire organization with a single click, right? Number one is a lot of people don't know you can do that. Number two is you still need somebody to go through those checks and assist the agency that's reviewing you, right? But once again, automation is getting easier, so this can assist your assessment, right, to make it easier for you to make that happen for the company, right? And here's some of the metrics you can get for that. See in the red, non-compliance. I probably need to make that bigger, but it shows you access key rotations not on, IAM users, unused credential check, blacklisted check. So you can get your non-compliance in red. You can drill down on those and see why those are there and fits. Over here, it gives you the number, right? So down at the bottom, you can see non-compliant was 698. Compliant is 8,489. When you're in a system, you can easily have 10,000 checks, but a lot of times those are inflated because if I have 40 EC2s or 40 VMs, right, that same check's going to be on that 40, right? So that's usually how you get 10,000, where if you just rolled it up to the one check, a lot of times that 8,000 is probably 2,000 or 1,000, right? Depending on how many VMs and EC2s and S3 buckets, right? Because it's duplicated on those same things. Hopefully you standardize so it's the same one on every one, right? So that's it. Let's see what my man JM said. This is underpaid. A lot of customers, you make more money. That is true, but and I agree with that. Let me read this. Help desk is underpaid in a lot of companies, and most companies it's underpaid, JM. You can make more money flipping burgers than a help desk. That's true, but we got to remember, though, is sometimes you take a step back because you only need to be in there 6 months, then you can get out. If you're working on your certs, working on your craft, that's just to get you in the door so you can get to the next step. And two is, my only pushback on that JM is level one, most help desks. Well, two is, let me roll back, is I usually work big companies at federal class. They usually have level 2 and 3, right? So once you get to 2, you start making average money. 3, some of those guys get paid. But you're right, level 1 help desk. But we got to remember that's the stepping stone, and we don't have to be in there long, JL. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year at the most, and we out. I'm 54, man. A year of my life went by super quick, JM. So I agree with you on that. Professor, salute to your chat. Appreciate that. I make $26.50 an hour help desk right now. NYC, that's chump change. Check that is true. But two is that's relative though. Is I'm in the Midwest. If you make it 26 in the Midwest, can't look bad. But you're right. In NYC, there's chump change. But we gonna get you out that. How long you been in there too, Kev Lopez? And we gonna get you out of there, man. We got Kev Tech in the house. You got Tech G. You got Textual Chatter. We got Black Heights. You got Women in Linux. So that's just to get your foot in there, though. That's just get the. I always forget. I actually had a job offer in NYC. I was looking at apartments because I'm from the Midwest. I was going to go stay there for a year. I usually don't talk about numbers, but since I didn't get the job. I think it was $150 an hour. I was looking at shoebox apartments in New York. They were like $3,000 for like 600 square feet. This is just me, man. I'm a bachelor. I got a big house. I sleep in one room on a couch at the time. So, but yeah, shout out to NYC and those apartment charges. I'm like, dude, I could get for a big house for $3,000. It was like 600 square feet. They were talking about like $3,000. I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to go to Brooklyn or something. But yeah, but now, Kevin Lopez, we're gonna get you out of there. Just a stepping stone, man. Just a stepping stone. Gonna get you in that cloud game, man. Get that cloud bag. So once again, we were talking about the 171. Like they said, they have a conformance pack. Provides general purpose clients designed and enable it to create security operation or cost optimization governance checks, manage or custom AWS config or remediation. Basically, we can click a button and it's going to go through and let us know everything we need to set up and how they want it set up, right? The two is we talked about that layering too. So really they was doing 171 and 853. So you can mail the conformance pack of how you need it and why you would need it like that, right? So, and that's it just from a picture standpoint. So that's AWS config. We run a dashboard environment, right? And how you want to move. So that's how it would look. So why are we doing all this? So we're just going to talk about it real. You're going to turn all this information over to an agency to get your ATO authority operator system. When you're in the government, like I worked on a general ledger, we had to get it approved to make sure it's secure. We had to do our package, and this is the process, right? So when we talk about checks and talk about my man's diagram, you're doing that to put in a package to get your software approved so you can charge the government, right? That's why you're doing it. You want to get in there and make money, right? So preparations, that's what we're talking about. Get your diagrams, get your scans on there. Pre-authorization, talk about kickoff meeting planning. Authorizations, we were talking about those packages, the SSP, the POAM, right? Part of that is your agency review package, debrief, remediation. Like we showed, these are the things that need to be fixed. It's called a CAP, continuous, I can't even talk, a CAP, continuous application process, just all your findings you need to fix, right? So it's continuously because they're gonna keep sending you. I've never seen one where everybody fixed everything, right? So you're gonna go through there. And once you get there, you're gonna get authorized to do business, right? So you're gonna get put in the marketplace. Then you get continuous monitoring. Like I used to do stuff for the IRS. Every 3 years, Booz Allen would come out and audit our system, right? That's one reason I'm comfortable. After Booz Allen runs you through the codes or rake you over the codes and really get up in all your process. Once you do that a couple of times, then you understand what it is. You understand what people looks for, right? And the other thing is, like I said, I've been doing this for a decade. So even though it's like 2,000 pages and like we saw 5,000 checks, right? It's just a process, right? Paperwork, stuff in the government. Once again, you can get a nice bag from that. So SSP, System Security Plan, what's in it? Like I said, the documentation, my man talked about the his diagram. Let me get back to it. Yeah, authorization of boundaries, data flow diagram, inheritance, external services, who you're connecting to externally. Like we sent pay files and fraud checks. So you still checks to get printed, right? All those external vendors, right? What kind of support and what kind of encryption you're using when you send your files. And two, like we talked about, we got to take an assessment of them because we're responsible for the services they provide to us, right? So when the government comes to us, they're going to ask us to do a risk assessment of all our vendors we use, right, at a high level. Like we talked about, fully noted pieces that should adequately describe and secure development and test environments, any transport service, multi-factor authentication, and alternate storage and processing site. Like when we were talking about Oracle NIM, where would you roll over to if your data center got hot? You don't want your operations to be stopped or curtailed, right? When the government pays you that money, they want to know you can operate if something happens in a different region or a different data center, right? Spin up. Good thing too is AWS got centers all over the United States and even in foreign countries, right? So you can spin those up. So what are we looking for in the package? Security policies, procedures, user guide, privacy and threat, privacy impact, rules of behavior, information system contingency plan, like we talked, configuration management, incident response. Right, so those are the documents you have. That's why it's going to be like 2,000 pages. But we know when you work for the government, right? It's all about large paperwork. So, and two is once again, you get paid well if you master that and be able to help an organization walk through that, right? And that's called GRC, right? Governance, Risk, and Compliance. I've been a help desk for 11 months. It's my fault, though. I've been search chasing instead of applying for jobs. Well, that's cool. How's your search coming? What search are you trying to get, Lopez? No, ain't nothing wrong with that. Sometimes if you got a nice rhythm, sometimes you can do your search where you at, especially if they're going to reimburse for you or if they're just giving you time and they're not on you, right? Sometimes the devil is better than when you go to another company. Sometimes you want to get all that taken care of. So when you go to a company, you can get at a higher level because you say, I got this search and I got this experience now. So I want to go to help desk to, junior programmer, networking, senior compliance guy, right? So you're doing it right. A lot of times, like I said, it's weird. A lot of times when you go to a company, you get searched. They don't seem to respect the search as more as if you came in with the search. Same things with degrees. A lot of people, when they get degrees for their current employer, the current employer kind of ignores them, right? So a lot of times you get all that. Then when you go, you get a higher job, higher pay, right? Because they respect that too. And right when you have all that, you taking that to the table, when you applying for jobs and other things. So and once you get your package, you get it authorized, the agency authorization. That's a big deal. If you see their authority to operate, meaning the agency said you're good. Agency authorization. During the step, the agency conducts a security authorization package review, which may include a SAR debrief with the FedRAMP PMO. Depending on the results of the agency review, the CMP remediation may be required. It may be required. You're gonna have some stuff you need to fix, which is not a big deal. A lot of agencies knows because they're going through it too. They just want to make sure you don't have any big holes or any big security things, and you have a process to fix it because everybody here knows we see CVEs come out and hacks come out. When a hack comes out, like I said, you got to be able to fix it on the fly. You got to have a security program. You got to have a place to test it. You got to have your senior people sign off of it. A lot of that you got to fund, right? You might have to be able to upgrade hardware. So a lot of times they want to know you have access to funding, right? All that's part of the agency authorization part. Finally, agency performs a risk assessment and accepts the risk and issue of the ATO. This decision is based on the agency risk tolerance. Once an agency provides an ATO letter to use to the CSO, the following action takes place. So that's it. I just want to touch on that. So when you do GRC compliance, really at the end, that's what you want to get, right? We're really getting the ATO. We're going to celebrate. Your management going to be cool. Because like I said, I used to work for the IRS. And for a state to collect state taxes, you have to get information from the IRS to be able to do that, right? So the IRS, when we have Booz Allen come through, they give us an ATO, authority to operate, to get the IRS's data, right? So like I said, I've been doing this for 10 years, so that's why you have to get it, right? Long story short, state agencies, they want to take your adjusted gross and bounce it against the IRS adjusted gross to make sure you're not lying, right? The IRS has a few more data points, right? So they bounce information off each other. From a fraud perspective, what fraud is happening in the nation, right? You bounce that off each other. You need to get that information from the IRS, and the IRS gives you an ATO. And Booz Allen comes out, like they say, and do a risk assessment, super deep, and check on your organization. So once again, that's how I got into the game. And once again, I just ended that. I was at the client for 9 years, 7 months. So they offered me a job. That consultants money a little better than state's money. So I just stayed out in the consulting world and checking a few things out, in that world, and throwing my fish out there. Everything's going well though. So that's kind of it. Let's see. I'm gonna drop the link if anybody want to come up. Do you have to be familiar with GDRP for Europe when working with the US professors? No, not really. Let me take that back. 98% is no, but there is a lot of international companies I'm cool with, and I work with people. If you're an international company, you're doing work in Europe, you have to know GDPR. Once again, I work for a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical company. They have to be familiar with GDPR because they're selling pharmaceuticals in Europe. There's a used car company here, and that guy's, I talked to him. He's a GDPR specialist. They have 2 big privacy certs I'm thinking about getting for the GDPR, and I looked those up. Those guys get paid. I was looking up AWS is always looking for compliance directors, and all those guys make $300,000, JM. So if you're an international company and you're doing business, and there's a lot of international companies, when their data's over here, if you ever listen to Facebook, they do business in Europe, but they're always trying to keep the data in the United States, so they don't have to do GDPR. But Europe's pushing back and telling Facebook, you got to respect our authority. So they want them to put GDPR on Facebook. So Facebook's been thinking about getting out of Europe because those are hard. But if you're an international company, Jam, you would have to do GDPR, and big companies, Ford, Chevrolet, and they're looking for compliance directors, and all those guys start making that TAM type money, man. Because now they call them harmonized. So now you got to take GDPR with Cali's got their own privacy. I think it's CCP, the California privacy. Then even in the Midwest, Indiana, I talked to our general attorney. We got our own privacy. Like each state is trying to outdo each other. So each state now has their own privacy. So part of compliance is I got to talk to attorneys, because the first thing I tell them is, where are we doing business, and what kind of privacy rules does that state have? If it's Cali, it's off the chain. Cali's almost doing GDPR. So you just got to know that when you're coming in from a privacy and compliance standpoint. But if you're in a international company, JM, you definitely going to need to know GDPR. You JM, you mistyped it. I'm GDRP. I'm like GDPR. Okay, maybe I'm saying it backwards, but no, that's it. I've been doing the CompTIA cert pathway. That's a good way. I have the trifecta cert does reimbursement, which is the main reason I stay. That ain't a bad move, Kevin. I might stay there, get out my certs, get a little more experience. You know which path you want to take? You going networking, database programming, GRC compliance, pen testing. You going red team. Shout out to my man Gabe Bay. He's offensive red team, right? I'm offensive blue team. Purple team is application security. Kev Lopez, which one you going with, man? There's you got a lot of opportunities there with those. And 2 is just because you pick one don't mean you're gonna end up there. Like I said, I start off as a programmer. Then next thing I know, I was a DBA, because as a programmer, I was in the Oracle database, writing packages. Next thing I know, you can be an application DBA. Then I started getting pretty decent at that. They were like, oh, we need a web admin, because the web admin kind of manages the programmers touching all of that, right? The next thing I know, I was the app admin, working with the programmers, the DBA, and the admin, and the web team, right? Because as a senior programmer, you got to know all of that. The next thing I know, I was doing compliance for all of that and got security. So just because you pick something, and skills stack, right? As you get in there, right? Skills stack. So I tell people, programming has helped me get into, web team helped me, the DBA, app team. Then all that together from a security perspective, you have to at least understand each one of those to be able to secure them, right? To be able to talk to those teams, right? When I give them the Cisco security checks, I need to understand them at a high level. I might not need to know every bucket is, but I need to know what AES 256 means, right? Or blowfish or load balancer, right? All that stuff, right? So you got to understand it at a high level, right? So now, Kev, it look like you making the right movements, man. I would just kind of pick a path. There's a ton of people out there. I mean, in the space you could talk to. There's a lot of career development guys out there that are super reasonable. So I think you're on the right path, man. If your employer reimbursing and they give you a little time, my employer let me study for certs on the time. He gave everybody an hour a day to study for certs. Man. On Friday, he gave you 2 hours a day. So as long as you got your work done and wasn't nothing on fire. So depending on what kind of employer you work for, Kevin, that's a good move, man. I want to be well-rounded, no security net. Oh, that's me, JM. That's kind of my basis, right? So, and two is the weird thing is when I started doing cloud, there was very few new techniques in there. Right, I've done a load balancer. Spinning up VMs were a little different, but I was doing VMware for shit in 2005. We were VMing Apache boxes, right? They wasn't spinning up automatically, but I knew what an EC2 was, and I knew what VMware was, right? So I've been doing each one of those. I've always worked with the network team. I've set up there. So when I went to the cloud and started setting it up in labs, I was familiar with all those JMs. So yeah, I'm trying to be well. And when you do security and put cloud on there, that's when you make the bag, right? The weird thing is I advise more than actually I type on computers anymore. I talk to CISOs and CIOs and heads of programming team about checks and how to get those implemented in the best way. And like we talked about GDPR, talking to our legal staff to figure out what are we responsible for from that for the constituents of a certain state. So. That's cool, man. Textual Chatter is the only SOC analyst I know. Him and probably Alpha Cyber that's in this space. I don't know if you know those two guys, but check those guys out. Especially Textual Chatter, I think is a manager or was a manager, a SOC manager, or a lead and a manager. Textual Chatter, that's it. Yeah, that's one thing I've never done. I've worked with the SOC team. I've never worked in a SOC looking at red team and logs, right? I do that from a compliance standpoint. And these are the events we need to look at from our SOC. These are the logs I'm sending you. How long you need to keep the logs from a SOC part of view, from a IRS or pub or FISMA standpoint. So, but yeah, I think Textual Chatter and Alpha Cyber. I'm trying to think of those are the two SOC guys that I'm familiar with that's in this space. So you might want to reach out to those guys, Kevin Lopez. That's it. So I think I am winding down for me. Like I said, I just want to touch on a little GRC. I was doing that for some other stuff. I'm like, oh, let me go present on it. I really want to do AWS. I'm trying to figure out if I'm gonna do Redshift or DynamoDB as a database. I don't think databases get a lot of love, but database is my first love as a programmer. And two is from a security perspective, that's where you keep all the good stuff. Cyber, social security numbers, HIPAA records, 99% that's 90% of that stuff's in the database. I always tell people they try to say PDFs on the disk. I'm like, oh no, put those in the database. We got extra security in the database. But no, that's it. Like I said, I'm gonna hang tight to see if you got any more questions for me. I appreciate that. Check out my man. I think he probably dropped out, but go check the Doc's channel. Let me find it. We were on there. Big Discussion 76. We're going to do a tech channel. I'm always on there. Blind guy, his wife. I'm trying to eat. Everybody knows Kev Tech IT. I don't need to give him a Dutch. Half of my, probably 60% of my subscribers came from Kev Tech. Shout out to him. I'm going to put the $5 on the barbecue today. Shout out to Kev Tech. I appreciate that. Once again, just going to hang on a little line. Like I said, professorblackouts@gmail.com. As soon as I get off of here, I'm going to check my... You're welcome, Kevin. I'm gonna check my my email. I'm a little behind, but yeah, check me out. I think I'm gonna start doing Tuesday nights. I'm doing this. And shout out to Doc. He got me thinking about this when we were chopping it up today. Um, Cybersecurity and big things. I'm always on mass surveillance, mass incarceration from a cybersecurity perspective. Um, Using technology for the wrong things. Shout out to engineering cannabis. When the bank uses artificial intelligence, machine learning to give you a credit score, if that credit score is based on where you live, why is that penalizing me, right? That is uh, machine learning, artificial intelligence having a negative impact on people's lives. That is shit. Part of security is fraud, right? So part of that's catching fraud. And the other part of that is what are these algorithms doing that's affecting people's lives, poor people in everybody's life, but especially if you're poor, right? Things like that can affect you, right? If you're getting food stamps, people don't know you go on a special database, right? People start tracking stuff you do, right? Is that is that something the government should be doing just because you're poor, right? So we're gonna talk about those algorithms. And two is what does the future of work look like? Right? We're tech people, so we're cool, right? But you got autonomous driving for trucks and cars. I was joking on Doc's channel. There used to be a typing pool of work. Like I said, I worked at a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical. It used to be 2,000 people that typed up pages. There used to be a typing pool. Nobody has a typing pool. The only people that get secretaries, administrative assistant is the C-suite, right? Everybody's got to type their own paper, right? Their own their own paper and their own emails, right? Because that's what you expect. But those jobs are disappearing. In your lifetime now, you've seen the cashier, right? Every time you go, there's more lanes of self-checkout. The cashier would disappear in the next 5 years, right? They won't disappear. They just be watching the lanes, right? So instead of having 20 of them, you're gonna have 5 of them just watching and helping you, right? They already know 3% of that's gonna go to shrinkage, aka people gonna steal stuff, but the money they're saving on benefits, people's salary and training, right? They're gonna make up more than that, any kind of way. So those are some stuff I'm gonna start doing, right? I like to do, I call it a societal issues, technology with security on top. So I think the first one we're gonna do, they're gonna have personal drones and Ubers and Lyfts in the air, right? They call them people drones, right? That's gonna be able to take people over the traffic in large cities like New York, right? So that's coming in the near future, and they're actually testing that out in the FAA. And the FAA, like we're doing, trying to get their paperwork to see if they pass an FAA audit to be able to do that in real life, right? So those are some of the things we're gonna do in the future. Like I like to do big thoughts, big thinking, and two is it was called WND, the weapons of math destruction, like calculation. How do those hurt people? Then another lady, Indian lady, just did there. The algorithms is the root of evil. Once again, how algorithms hurt regular people that people don't really know. So those are some of the stuff we're going to talk about in the future. So that's all I got. Everybody have a nice weekend. Monday's here. Let's get it.